Call of Duty II released as a sequel 2 years after the critically acclaimed original title, aptly named Call of Duty. Developed by Infinity Ward, the World War II shooter released in October of 2005 for the PC and a month later as a launch title for the Xbox 360. It was later released in some phones and other mobile devices in various forms, but never made its way to the PlayStation 3. Call of Duty 2 generally stuck to the same formula that the original game put forth, with linear levels and the inclusion of multiple different campaigns. But some changes were made that drastically changed the gameplay, and brings Call of Duty 2 much closer to the Call of Duty we play today than the original. COD 2 was the most popular launch title on Xbox 360, and as of 2013 has sold over 5.9 million copies. Overall, I would say Call of Duty 2 improved on a lot of the aspects of the original game, but there are some glaring exclusions that were in the expansion pack United Offensive that did not make it into Call of Duty 2. Call of Duty 2 contains 4 individual campaigns that are split up into 3 main stories, Russian, British, and American, that you progress through during the game. The game opens with you playing Private Vasily Ivanovich Kozlov, whose name I just absolutely butchered, but whatever, where you are trained with other members of the 13th Guards Rifle Division until you are interrupted by a German invasion and have to fend them off. The invasion serves as the rest of the game's tutorial to get used to the game's control and mechanics, and you can quickly see the changes Infinity Ward has made in this game. If you didn't watch my retrospective on the original Call of Duty, I would recommend watching that first, as I'll be referring back to that video a lot, and for the purpose of consistency and to avoid confusion, I'm going to talk about the improvements and changes this game has in comparison to the original Call of Duty rather than the expansion United Offensive, since this is more of a direct sequel to Infinity Ward's game rather than the latter. I will touch on the key mechanics though that were included in United Offensive that are absent in this game. So now that that's out of the way, let's continue. So right off the bat you will notice the improvements in the graphics and presentation in the game. At the time they were greatly praised, especially in the PC version, which is the one I'll be kind of doing this review on. If you played United Offensive, you will notice that Sprint is oddly absent, even though it makes its return in Infinity Ward's next game and is a staple for the rest of the series. The game plays fine without Sprint, but there are definitely times during the campaign, and especially in multiplayer, where you wish the feature had been retained. For example, the mission Rangers Lead the Way, where you are storming Hill 400 against heavy machine gun fire, is just annoying at times because you move so slow and you constantly get gunned down, especially on the higher difficulties. Anyways, the next major change you will notice is the use of health packs is gone. I would say the addition of regenerating health was one of the biggest changes to the gameplay in Call of Duty 2. And the regenerating health system was praised by a lot of the major outlets like GameSpot at the time, over the health pack system that was present in the previous game. While this may seem like a small change, it completely changes the way you play the game, as now all you have to do to get your health back is go behind cover for a few seconds. And you will never get to points in the game where you feel you are hitting your head on a wall because you are low on health, and keep dying. The regenerating health was a staple in Call of Duty until more recently, where in World War II the campaign reintroduced health packs, and in Black Ops 4 you have to use an ability to heal that's on a cooldown. Some of the smaller changes to the gameplay of the game are the guns definitely feel like they have more recoil, especially when you're ADSing. This is a nice touch, because at times in the original, the guns just felt off due to the lack of recoil. Another big improvement to the guns is the reduction of the muzzle flash. If you watched my previous Call of Duty video, you'll know one of my big complaints was how annoying it was to fire the automatics, since you could not really see what you were doing. Now that complaint is gone, and they also improved the scope so it does not black out a majority of the screen. Both of these though were improvements United Offensive made. Another small change, and this is something I would have to test to be 100% on, but I'm pretty sure hip fire is slightly less accurate in this game. In the original, I felt pretty confident just spraying from the hip at close to medium range, but in this it feels like unless they are right on top of you, hip firing is not the way to go. This could partly be due to how much I hated not being able to see when I was ADSing though in the previous title. Grenade indicators have also been added. but you do not have the ability to throw back grenades like you have in later games. Your allies though can throw the grenades back, but sometimes they fuck that up and everyone dies. The grenade indicator is a nice touch though, as I couldn't count the amount of times my oblivious self died to a grenade in the original COD without noticing it was there. One downside to this is the AI in COD 2 is extremely grenade happy. They chuck those things at you like you're a 5-year-old feeding some bread to fishes. It works out though, because it forces you out of cover at times and into direct gunfights, which is really where the game shines. Another small change with the grenades is the amount you can hold has been drastically reduced from 10 to 4, which really doesn't make a huge difference as you constantly pick up grenades as you play through the levels. Very rarely did I feel I needed a grenade and didn't have multiple in my inventory already. Along with the frags, the game also has smokes, which are very useful when trying to advance in certain sections when you are pinned down. Another change is the absence of the quick save feature that the original and United Offensive used. In those games you had checkpoints, but they were further apart and inconsistent at times, so you were given a quick save that was automatically mapped to F5 to be able to save whenever you wanted. I imagine this was removed in Call of Duty since it was developed to be released on consoles, and you wouldn't want to dedicate a button on a controller just to be able to quick save. Honestly though, it really ends up working out better, because in my opinion, I don't have to end up spamming save just to get through levels without being frustrated. I know I could have self-control and not quick save all the time for the added challenge, but I don't do this, so this eliminates that issue, and I can't imagine I'm the only one that can't control themselves when it comes to quick saves. This game, just like the previous, focuses on squad-based gameplay, and just like the previous game, they are just there for the most part. But a lot of times they just get in your way in doorways and small hallways, or jump in front of your bullets, causing you to fail for killing a friendly. Just like the previous title, the missions are mostly linear based levels, with a couple of exceptions where you can kinda choose which objective you want to complete first. Usually though, there is a set path the game expects you to follow, and you can just choose to go out of your way if you wish. One thing I noticed, and it did not happen on every section, but you can skip entire objectives if you finish the later ones before completing the earlier ones. It will just auto-complete them after you complete the later one. Call of Duty 2 also incorporates occasional change of pace sections to break up the regular gameplay, but it is a lot less common in this one. There are about 2 missions where you drive a tank, and one where you shoot a turret off the back of a truck. And there's a small section at the start of the last mission where you shoot a turret off a ship to suppress some enemies. But for the most part, this game is much more on-foot focused, with random turrets you can use throughout the levels if you wish. One thing I really disliked in Call of Duty 2 was the overuse of sections where you have to just defend until reinforcements arrive. These were in the previous title, but they seem like they used them a lot more in this one. Or possibly they just annoyed me more because I had to keep playing them. I usually would just cheese them by hiding somewhere until the end. One thing that I didn't really touch on in my previous video of the original Call of Duty was that in certain parts of the missions, enemies will just infinitely respawn until you advance past a certain section, and this makes its return in Call of Duty 2. This can make certain sections of levels frustrating, as you just have to push forward just to get enemies to stop spawning, where if you don't notice that is what's going on, you could spend forever just gunning down enemies until you run out of ammo. I found this ended up with me just aggressively pushing through levels rather than meticulously taking out enemies like I might want to at times. Just like in the previous title, the story isn't really anything to write home about. It is a very generic war story, but honestly that's totally okay. For the time, this type of story worked just fine, and did a good job of immersing you in the experience and moving you through the campaign. Captain Price, who you might be familiar with, also appears in the game multiple times just like he did in the original. And, just like in the original, there aren't really set cutscenes, just occasional sections where NPCs talk to you or give you some objectives. There are the war clip type slides that are shown at the start of some of the missions, but if I'm honest, I just skipped or tuned out during most of those. Call of Duty 2 is really not something you should play if you want well fleshed out characters or a super intriguing story. But as long as you know what you're getting into beforehand, then it works perfectly fine. I will now quickly cover the multiplayer. I'm not going to pretend I put tons of hours into it for this video. I played maybe 3 to 4 hours on the PC, and played a little back in the day when it came with my 360. The modes in multiplayer consist of Deathmatch, Team Deathmatch, Capture the Flag, Search and Destroy, and Headquarters, all of which you should be familiar with today if you play Call of Duty. There were two major criticisms of the multiplayer at the time, and that was that Call of Duty 2 lacks drivable vehicles in multiplayer, and lacks the game type Base Assault, both of which were in Grey Matter's United Offensive expansion. Many players felt that the game should have picked up where United Offensive left off, instead of just where Call of Duty left off, and that is a criticism I can totally understand. I imagine some of these decisions were made due to Call of Duty 2 making its way onto the Xbox 360 and having less processing power though. The PC version of the game can hold up to 64 players, while the 360 version can only have 8 players at once. But despite that, Call of Duty 2 was one of the most popular games on the console for the first couple years of its release. The game included 13 maps out of the box, 3 of which were remakes of the original Call of Duty, and then later it added 9 more maps in map packs after release. I think in the original out-of-the-box settings, you were either placed on the Allies or the Axis side, and then depending on the maps, you selected from various preset weapon loadouts, based on what faction you were. But since I am on PC now, and there's only a few community servers that are left open with players, and those change the game in various ways, it makes it very hard for me to now experience the true Call of Duty 2 multiplayer. Most servers let you pick whatever weapons you want, some even add in sprint, and in various cases change other things depending on the server. I'm not gonna lie though, when I can find games not full of bots, and my ping isn't super high, the game is still pretty fun. And you can definitely tell it influenced games like Battalion 1944 if you happen to have played that. However, besides for this video, I doubt I will spend too much time going back to the multiplayer in Call of Duty 2. Overall, Call of Duty 2 is an enjoyable experience. It modernized Call of Duty as a series much closer to what we are familiar with today, and the campaign is an enjoyable experience if you want a 8-ish hour World War II campaign to play through. Is it one of the best old FPS games you could play? No. But it holds its own, and it is worth a play if you enjoy Call of Duty or just curious how the series has progressed over time. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for checking it out. If you enjoyed it, throw a like on the video, subscribe, and all those different things. I do have some feedback to ask for though. Even though this video was supposed to come out right after the original Call of Duty video, and instead I think I made like 5 or 6 other videos, eventually I'll probably continue this series. So that leads us to whether we do Call of Duty 3 or not. If you know, Call of Duty 3 wasn't released on PC, so the only way for me to cover it really would be to emulate it, because I'm not going to go buy a 360 again. So do you guys think I should emulate it, or should I skip straight to Call of Duty 4? Which poses another question. With Call of Duty 4, would you guys prefer to see the original Call of Duty 4 or the remastered version? I'm probably only going to do one because I don't own either of them on Steam, so I'm not going to buy both. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you next time.